welcome to my channel again. Today I'm going to be talking about 8 times, or was it 7? I don't know. 7 or 8 times in my life that people thought I was on drugs or drunk, and I wasn't. I'm talking about this today because, as you know, if you've been on my channel before, I am legally blind. I have optic nerve hypoplasia along with astigmatism and nystagmus since birth. And you would think that a lot of the ways that my low vision changes the way I do things, you would think that would be the hard part of having this disability, but it isn't. The hardest, well, I wouldn't say the hardest, the trickiest thing that I have to deal with on a daily basis is the anxiety that I experience because of my low vision. Not because of my low vision, because of how people perceive me when I'm in public or interacting with people. And this sounds crazy because, well, first of all, when sighted people that have not been exposed to folks with low vision think of blind people, they think either completely blind or not blind at all, maybe with glasses that improve their sight. Without their glasses, they're blind, but otherwise they don't quite understand the in-between. And so it confuses people, I think. And on top of that, the nystagmus does. So I'm going to talk about some times in my life when people thought I was on drugs or crazy or something, but pretty much on drugs. And looking back on it, it's hilarious. It really is funny. It's funny, but at the same time, I'll be honest with you, it causes me anxiety. So going out into public, I'm sure to not leave home without my sunglasses. And even then, sometimes people will wonder why I'm wearing my sunglasses indoors, so it's a catch-22. Okay, so number 1, I was at a Denny's restaurant with a friend of mine. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. We had been in downtown Austin that night, going to bars and, hanging out. We were young 20-somethings, 24 years old, and we were buddies, and we were having a great time. And she was taking me home after our night of fun, and on our way home, we stopped off at Denny's. Well, the waiter came up to the table, and of course, the way I see the waiter is just a blank face. I was close enough to tell the color of his skin, but I couldn't tell how old he was or if he was looking at me, or that's pretty much the way it is for me anytime. So, whatever. But he was taking our order. When he came up to the table, I think he asked me for my order. This was about 20 years ago. Oh my gosh, 20 years ago. Anyway, this was about 20 years ago. And he looked at my friend and he said, "Does she have a phone number?" And she said, "Well, why don't you ask her? She's right there." And so he asked me, "Hey, do you have a phone number?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, what the heck, So I gave him my phone number. I was a single lady, and he seemed like a nice enough guy. And so he started calling me. A couple days later, he would call me once a day in the evening time, and we would chat. And, he kind of wasn't really my kind of guy, but we would just talk on the phone. And finally, the second or third time he called me, I don't know how many times we had talked, it occurred to me that he thought I was a meth addict or a crackhead or something, because he started talking to me about his meth use. And he said he kept hinting for me to tell him when I do my meth, or he kept hinting at me to reveal to him that I was also a user. And finally I said to him, I'm like, "Do you think I'm on drugs?" And he got really quiet, and I said, "I'm legally blind. When you met me the other night at Denny's, I wasn't on drugs. I'm legally blind, and I have nystagmus, which makes my eyes move." He hung up on me. I never heard from him again. And that was a shocker, because I guess for me, I never really thought, I don't think about it. I mean, I when I'm with my friends, I certainly don't think about it. I don't have to. But I don't think I realized the extent of how different I look, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So there's that experience, and looking back on it, it's kind of funny. So yeah, it's on. Okay, for number 2, the next experience I had. Now this one made me really angry for a long time, and yeah, I'm probably still angry about it. The doctor's office that I have been going to for the last 13 or 14 years has not been very kind to me because they don't quite understand my vision loss. At least until the last 4 years or so. I finally found a really good doctor that I'm happy with, and she makes sure nobody gives me a hard time. But there were 2 times at this particular place, and I'm going to tell you about one of those times right now. I was in the waiting room, and this was the first time I had been to this particular office that I was at. I always went to one on one side of town, but this day I went and I just needed to have blood drawn, so I asked if I could go to the one that was closer to my house, and they said sure. So my husband waited for me in the car, and I ran in to have my blood drawn. And so I'm in the waiting room. I guess I didn't have sunglasses on because I don't think this would have happened. I had the lady, I filled out the paper. I had to get like this and write my name and everything on the paper. Sorry for the traffic. Anyway, I wrote my name down, put it in the thing, and I don't think the security guard saw me do that. Anyway, when they called my name to come back, he was eyeing me, because I saw him kind of move. I could see his stance, like, coming closer to me, and then he's like, "You okay?" And he grabbed my arm, and he started to disrespect me. He started to talk to me like I was gonna be a problem, and he's like, "Well, you really shouldn't." I don't even remember exactly what he said, but it was obvious that he thought I was on drugs. He said something like, "You've been having a little bit too much fun lately, haven't you? Well, you need to be careful." And, he led me to the chair, and the whole time I was in the chair to have my blood drawn, he stood there with his arms crossed and just stood over me and kept making snide remarks to the woman in there that was going to draw my blood. And I left there so angry. Oh, man, was I angry. And come to think of it, I had the doctor I have now, and this was the changing point for me. I went to her about it, and I told her what happened, and she kind of was shocked. And I think at that point she realized how my eyes work, or, why I look a little goofy. I think she did her research, and she got very angry and said, "I will take care of this." And I've never had a problem since. But like I say, it wasn't the first time I had a problem. So number 2 is the security guard at my doctor's office, of all places, thinking that I was on drugs. And number 3, this is also in the doctor's office. This is when I went to the first building, before I ever went to the building that had the security guard in it, and before I had my current doctor. I was in the office, and I wasn't seeing my doctor that day, and I had a nurse practitioner, and she handed me a prescription, and I picked it up, and I put it up to my eye to read it, because this is how I read. And she slammed her hand down, she looked at me, and she said, "Why are you smelling what I just wrote?" And I was like, I started laughing. At first I thought she was joking, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm reading it. I don't see well." And I don't think she believed me. So I had to see her a few more times, and each time I had to have a urine sample taken. And my daughter was 4 years old, so she came into the restroom with me. And when she came back out with my results, she told me that the urine sample was way too clean, that now she wanted me to go give urine sample without my daughter because it couldn't possibly be my own. And I don't know what that was all about, but that, she was a little bit leery of me, as if there was something strange or odd about me. So that's number 3. Okay, now number 4 still has me hot. I am still pretty mad about number 4. This happened just a couple of weeks ago, and it shocked me, and it came out of nowhere. So yeah, I'm still pretty hot about it. But I did what I needed to set the story straight. So I'll be over it soon. I signed my daughters up for a local art class at the public library in our town, and it was in the evening. It was a 2.5-hour class. Well, it was, a drop your kids off thing, and the teachers were school teachers. They were art teachers at public schools, and they're trying to start a club, and, a really nice thing, a wonderful thing for the community, needed thing. Well, my daughters are older, and they were the oldest in the class, so, when we walked in, they were a little uncomfortable. Anyway, so we dropped them off for the class. I had met the woman that ran the class a couple weeks before at a meet and greet, where she was letting the public know about her classes. And so she met me and my daughter, and then I went home that day after the meet and greet, and I added her to my friends list. I added her on Facebook, and so she had been on my Facebook too. And anyway, so I dropped my kids off, my husband and I, and we went out to dinner. And that lasted about an hour, and it was a good ways away. So anyway, they had about an hour left of class by the time we were done with our date. So we pulled in the parking lot, and we were waiting, and we were just going to hang out because it didn't make sense to go home and then come back. So we just thought, well, we'll just hang out. It was a nice night, and it was a nice chance for us to hang out. Well, I didn't feel good, and I needed to use the restroom, and this came out of the blue. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? There's no businesses around. I know where the restroom is in this building, but I had to walk through the art class to get to the restroom. Oh, mind you, when we dropped the children off, they gave us a ticket to pick our kids up. And I said, is it okay if we come hang out before it's time to pick them up? Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. You can just hang out in here. Well, we went in there, and I said, I'm going to use the restroom. And I walked by. My husband followed me to make sure that I found the restroom, and he waited for me in the hall. And so we left. After I was done, I met him back in the hall, and we walked through the classroom again and outdoors. And we were outdoors about 20 minutes, hanging out, talking, sitting on a bench. And then I needed to use the restroom again. I know, TMI. So we went back, and, we were going to go home. In fact, we started to go home, and then I said, no, I can just go in there, because I felt awkward. I didn't want my kids I didn't want to interrupt their class or embarrass them or bother anyone. But I finally said, you know what, I'm just going to go in there. So I went to the door to go in, and it was locked. So I grabbed the door handle, and it was locked, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I knocked, and the woman came out. The woman that I had met and added on Facebook and talked to on Facebook and talked to in person and talked to when I registered my kids and everything else. I said, can I use the restroom? And she's like, yeah, sure. So I went in there. My husband followed me to wait for me in the hall. And we came out, and that was it. Well, anyway, after the class was over, we got in the car with our kids. And my kids, they're 12 and 13. They're like, Mom, they were talking about you in there. And I said, why? And they said they were going to call the police, and they were worried, and they told everyone to keep an eye on you because they didn't think something was right. They thought something was wrong with you. And I was like, something was wrong with me. And oh, yeah, like I say, I'm still mad about this because it takes so much courage for me to get out of my house because of the anxiety of it's not that I care what people think, but I would like to be taken remotely seriously, and it's kind of hard when people make assumptions about you without getting to know you. I don't know, it's easy to say that, but who knows how I would be in their place. Anyway, it's embarrassing and frustrating, and I'm sure it's uncomfortable for my kids. But my kids they're awesome. They're awesome, and they're willing to stand up for me when they need to. And so is my husband. I cannot even tell you how awesome he is. He does not care, and if he does, he hides it so well. I mean, I really am lucky. I'm blessed with a great family. But in this small community that I live in, I sort of would expect, I wouldn't expect this. I mean, people may know me, oh, the lady that doesn't see well, but apparently they don't understand that my eyes move too. So that's that. Okay, number 5. Now this one happened a long time ago. I had a boyfriend in high school that was deaf, and he was partially deaf, and he also had cerebral palsy. Not to mention leukemia. But we didn't know it at this... Actually, we did know it at this point. Anyway, he had cerebral palsy, he had leukemia, and so, he kind of looked bad because of his leukemia, he had to have a lot of blood transfusions and a lot of needle sticks in his arms. Plus, he was very skinny, and he walked a little with a bit of a limp, and his speech was slurred because of his hearing impairment. So between he and I, we had some trouble in certain places. We had a reservation at a hotel, for instance. We were in Boston we were there to see specialists for his blood, and we were there for a week to talk to the specialists. And there weren't very many hotels, especially hotels that we could afford, that were close to the hospital or close enough to get to. Well, we found a small one. It was a nice, older little building. It was right across from the hospital, and it was in our price range. And it was very clean and very nice. So we got a room there, and it was reserved, and we were there about 3 nights. And one night we came in from our doctor's appointment, and the clerk called us over on our way to the elevator, and he said, I'm sorry, but there's been a mistake in reservations. And we overbooked. We booked your room to someone else. And pretty much we had to leave. And as naive and young as we were more shocked than anything, so we packed our things and we left. And, gosh, I haven't really talked about that to anyone, at least not for a long time. And so we didn't have anywhere to go. We ended up staying at the YMCA because everything was booked. It was crazy. It was really crazy. At the time, I really believed that they were overbooked. But looking back, no, they weren't overbooked, which shocks me because they knew we were there for the hospital. They knew my husband had leukemia. And I guess they didn't understand my eyesight. And the two of us together, we just looked nuts. So there was that, and then there was another time that he and I, we were looking for apartments, and there was this gated community, and we pulled up to the gate, and we said, we're here, we have an appointment to look at an apartment. And the man says, we had 7-Eleven drink cups with us, and we had soda in them. It was the middle of the day, and the man says, oh, no, you don't. I know what's in those cups, and you're not coming in here. And we're like, what? Shocked. I mean, we were there to look at an apartment. That's where our minds were. And he's like, no, I know what's in that cup. I know what you young people drink. You can turn on around and get out of here. I said, we can open the cup for you, and you can smell it, you can taste it, and you'll see we're not drinking. And he wasn't having it, so we had to leave. So there's that. And so those are 2 times. Those are a long time ago. And that was... Oh, no. There was one more time and that I was actually going to tell you about. Now, this is just as crazy in this number 5. We were together again, and we were on the way. It was right after Adrian's leukemia had come back, and I had just learned about it. I didn't know he had ever had it, so it was really a wild ride. I was 19. Maybe I was 18. I don't know. Anyway, we were going to see his mother in Wisconsin from Texas, and we were taking the Amtrak. No, this time we were taking Greyhound. I think this was the last time we took the Greyhound because of what happened. Well, we go to Chicago. We have to transfer buses in Chicago, and we had waited around 3 hours for our transferring bus. And we go to get on, and the driver's like, stop there. You're not getting on this bus. And we're like, what? We have a ticket. And he's like, no, you're on something. And he accused us of being on something. He said, you're going to have to wait around until you sober up to get onto the next bus. And I said, well, when's the next bus? The next bus wasn't for 12 hours. And he said, I'm sorry, you're not getting on the bus. So I was livid, and I went up. Oh, we even had a paper in his wallet explaining that he had CP and he had all these disabilities, that he was hearing impaired, and please allow him, because of our experiences in the past, we had his doctor write us a letter, and they would not accept that letter. So there's a lawsuit that we let go. I mean, that could have totally been a lawsuit right there. And a lot of the shady people there in Chicago that get on and off those buses, and they picked us not to let us on the bus. So anyway, we literally sat in that bus station for 12 hours. I will never forget that. That was quite a day. Or 24-hour period. It was terrible. Okay, and last but not least, I think it's number 6. I don't know. I don't think the person thought I was on drugs, but this was a really irritating situation and strange. I was downtown in a large city, walking around, doing business. It was probably about 5 in the afternoon, and I ran into this little convenience store on a corner, and I grabbed a soda, and I went up to the counter, and I was in a hurry. I don't remember where I was going. This must have been 20 years ago. Everything happened 20 years ago. No, well, a lot of things did. It seems, because I don't know, I was busy back then. So anyway, I went in, I bought this soda, and I could tell there was a clock on the wall behind the cashier, but that didn't matter because I couldn't read it. I mean, if it wasn't a clock, it was a round circle of some sort. But anyway, I asked the cashier, do you have the time? And she got livid. She's like, it's right there. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't see that. And she said, it's right there. I said, ma'am, I'm visually impaired. I can't see it. And all of a sudden, she went crazy and started screaming, why don't you wear a pen like the deaf people do to let me know that you can't see well? I didn't know they made such a thing. And oh my gosh, so that was just kind of funny. But anyway, those are just a few things that have happened because of misunderstandings and people not quite getting it, or me not being specific enough to explain to people what's going on. I do have a cane, and I really should carry it around for 2 reasons. One, it would probably keep me from tripping as much as I do. And 2, it would probably help people understand. But I feel self-conscious because I'm afraid they're going to think, well, why isn't she using it the way she's supposed to? It's just awkward. It's so awkward. So yes, every time I'm out and these things happen, I always think I should have brought my cane. So one of these days I'll learn. But anyway, I really appreciate you watching my channel. I hope it's been interesting to you. If you can think of anything that you'd like to hear or learn about concerning visual impairment, if I can help you, I'd be glad to. Stay tuned. I'll be making more videos, and my channel is very eclectic. I like my pets and my kids and my hobbies, so I pretty much just make random videos. But I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to meeting you. Bye bye.